Okay, so forget about that image of a lone hacker in a hoodie. We're going way deeper today.
Yeah.
We're talking about a cyber criminal operation that's basically structured like, a Fortune 500 company,
Yeah.
departments, multi-million-dollar budgets, an operation that has really taken down some major organizations.
Hmm.
That's right, we're talking about Wizard Spider, the group behind TrickBot, the infamous Conti ransomware, you've probably heard of that, and a bunch of cyber attacks that will have made headlines, right?
Absolutely. And when you look at how they operate, the tempo and the scale of their attacks,
Yeah.
comparing them to a big corporation, it's not just an analogy. It's scary accurate. They are that sophisticated. So today, our deep dive has a clear mission. Figure out Wizard Spider. Who are they? How do they attack? And most importantly for you listening, how to defend against them.
Okay, so you're saying this is more than just a handful of tech-savvy people causing
Way
trouble.
more.
Who exactly is Wizard Spider? What makes them stand out in the cybercrime world?
Well, they first popped up around 2016.
Okay.
Identified as a Russian-speaking APT, Advanced Persistent Threat Group. Now, you usually hear about APTs linked to governments and spying,
Right, right.
but Wizard Spider, they're all about the money. They're basically the pioneers of this super profitable model called ROSIS,
Right.
Ransomware as a Service.
Ransomware is a service, so they're not just doing their own attacks, they're helping others attack.
Exactly. And their main tool for this, their malware, TrickBot. At first, it was a banking Trojan, stealing financial data, right?
Okay.
But it's evolved. Now it's like the Swiss Army knife of cybercrime. A modular malware loader, basically a program that can download and install other modules or features, as needed.
Yeah, right.
They can customize their attacks for whatever they want, ransomware, credential theft, even espionage. And then from 2019 to 2022, their go-to weapon, Conti ransomware. And let me tell you, it was extremely profitable for them.
So how does a group like this actually bring in so much cash? It seems like they've got multiple income streams.
Oh, absolutely. Their core business is those ransomware attacks. Encrypt everything, demand millions to unlock it.
Right.
But then they add another layer of pain, double extortion.
Wow.
Before encrypting, they steal your sensitive data.
Oh, wow.
Then they threaten to leak it on the dark web if you don't pay up. It's brutal. And get this, they'll sell access to networks they've already hacked.
To other criminals?
Yeah, to other cyber criminals. And then, of course, there's the RAS, the Ransomware as a Service. It's a moneymaker. They
Yes.
basically franchise out Conti. Other groups, affiliates, carry out the attacks.
Okay.
Wizard Spider takes a nice 20 to 30% cut of any ransom paid.
Yeah.
It's a slick and, sadly, super effective business model. What's interesting is how RAS allows them to scale without having to run every single attack themselves. Diversifies their risk,
Yeah.
expands their reach. Really smart.
Okay, so we've got this image of a very organized, financially motivated entity, but how do they actually break into a system in the first place?
Right.
What does a typical Wizard Spider attack look like, step by step?
It usually follows a pretty predictable pattern. The first step, that initial foothold, getting inside the target's network, one of their favorite methods, phishing emails.
Yeah, makes sense.
Carefully crafted with attachments or links. You click, boom, you've downloaded their malware.
Often TrickBot?
Oh, wow. They also target weaknesses in RDP, remote desktop protocol. They'll
Yes.
try to crack weak passwords over and over, brute force attacks.
Okay.
And get this, they use IABs, initial access brokers.
What are those?
Think of them like cybercriminal subcontractors. Their whole job is breaking into networks. Then they sell that access to groups like Wizard Spider.
So they're basically outsourcing the break-in itself.
They are.
That's a whole other level of specialization in the cybercrime world.
Absolutely.
So what happens once they've got that initial access?
So then comes reconnaissance and privilege escalation. They snoop around, looking for valuable data and security holes. A common tactic. Targeting Active Directory. If it's misconfigured, they can get admin privileges, move freely across the network. It's a nightmare. They also love living off the land techniques.
Lauderdale.
Yeah. Basically, they use legitimate Windows tools, built-in stuff, for their dirty work.
Oh, clever.
Very PowerShell, WMIC, PSExec, it blends in, makes it harder for antivirus to detect.
Wow.
And then there's Cobalt Strike,
Yeah.
their command and control center, basically.
Right.
Discreet and powerful. They can manage and talk to all the compromised systems.
We hear a lot about Cobalt Strike and cybersecurity. What makes it so popular with these guys?
Well, it's actually a legitimate tool,
Yeah.
for security pros doing penetration testing. But it's so versatile, so stealthy, it's perfect for threat actors like Wizard Spider.
Makes sense.
They can control infected machines, run commands remotely, jump from one system to another. It's essential for these complex multi-stage attacks they pull off.
Okay, so they've mapped the network, they've got higher access. This is when the ransomware gets deployed, right?
Oh, you got it. They have control, then boom, payload deployment. That initial malware they use, TrickBot, Bizarre Load, or whatever,
Right.
it sets the stage for the main event, the ransomware itself.
Yeah.
Before 2020, they loved Ryuk, but then Conti became their favorite. Your files are locked, unusable, and the ransom note pops up.
Yeah.
But remember that double extortion tactic?
Oh, yeah, the data theft.
They steal your data before encryption. They'll leak it on their dark websites if you don't pay. It's a double whammy.
It's like they punch you and then as you're falling, they kick you.
Exactly.
What about recovery? Can victims bounce back easily if they don't pay?
Not really. They want that payment, so they make recovery tough. They use cobalt strike beacons to keep a backdoor open. Even if you claim the malware, they might still be there. They delete shadow copies, which are like automatic backups, and disable your backup systems.
Wow, so you're really stuck.
Basically. And to go even deeper, they use tools like Mimic-Ats.
Okay.
It grabs login info, usernames, and passwords right from the computer's memory.
Oh.
They can then compromise more accounts, more systems. It's relentless.
It's scary how sophisticated and determined they are. Have there been any really big, famous attacks that showed just how much damage they can do?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest, you probably remember it, was the attack on Ireland's health service executive, the HSE, back in 2021.
Oh, yeah.
Conti ransomware. Over 80,000 devices encrypted.
Wow.
They demanded $20 million. The Irish government, to their credit, refused to pay.
Good for them.
But the impact was huge. Hospitals had to go back to pen and paper. For weeks.
Oh, man.
It was chaos. It really shows how these attacks can have real human cost.
Attacking a healthcare system like that, it's just heartless, no regard for human life. Have they hit other big organizations?
Oh, yeah, tons. Lots of U.S. Fortune 500 companies, all kinds of industries, banks, law firms, insurance, manufacturing, you name it. Ransom demands, anywhere from $10 million to $50 million.
It's crazy, so much financial and operational damage. But haven't there been some leaks that expose them a bit?
You're right. In 2022, after Russia invaded Ukraine, a Ukrainian researcher leaked a ton of internal Conti chats.
Really?
Yeah. It was a goldmine. We got to look inside Wizard Spider like never before.
So what did we learn?
It was shocking. This wasn't some loose group of hackers. It was a structured organization, like a real company. They had payroll, managers, HR policies, even performance penalties.
No way.
Oh, yeah. Over 100 full-time staff, each with their own role in this criminal machine. It was eye-opening.
It's unsettling, to say the least. Knowing all this, who they are, how they attack, the damage they cause, what can our listeners do to protect themselves?
That's the million-dollar question. Wizard Spider's a tough opponent, but there are things you can do to make yourself less vulnerable. First and foremost, user awareness and phishing prevention. You got to train your employees to spot those tricky phishing emails, those social engineering scams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you need good email filtering, advanced attachment scanning to block that stuff before it even reaches your inbox. Your people are your first line of defense.
So it's all about having a strong human firewall.
Exactly.
What about on the tech side? What can we do proactively to strengthen defenses?
Strong authentication and access controls are key. Multi-factor authentication, MFA on all accounts.
Right.
Even if they get your password, they need another factor to get in. Makes it way harder. And RDP, remote desktop protocol, you got to restrict access.
Okay.
Only give it to people who absolutely need it. If you have to use RDP, strong, unique passwords. And watch for any weird logins.
So MFA and locking down RDP, those are good starting points.
Absolutely. But what if they still get through? How do you catch them in the act?
Yeah, good question.
That's where EDR comes in. Endpoint detection and response.
Okay.
These tools monitor your computers, servers, everything for any suspicious activity. A good EDR can spot Wizard Spider's tricks like TrickBot, Cobalt Strike, Mimic-Ats. You also need to watch your network traffic, look for data sneaking out. EDR is like your alarm system.
So it's not just stopping them from getting in, it's also spotting them if they do. How can we limit the damage if an attack happens?
Network segmentation. Divide your network into separate sections.
Okay.
If they get into one, it's harder to spread. And least privilege. Only give admin access to those who absolutely need it. Less to target.
Right. So it's like putting up roadblocks, makes it harder for them to move around and get to your important stuff.
Exactly.
But what if, despite all this, an attack still happens? How do we prepare for the worst?
Backups and incident response plans. They are your lifeline. You need offline, immutable backups,
Hmm.
not connected to your network,
Okay.
can't be messed with. And test those backups regularly. Make sure they work. Then you need an incident response plan, specifically for ransomware. Run some tabletop exercises.
Tabletop exercises.
Simulate an attack. See how your team responds. Practice makes perfect,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Preparation is key to minimizing damage.
So it's a multi-layered approach: prevention, detection, containment, and a solid recovery plan.
You got it. Cybersecurity isn't just about the tech. It's about people, processes, and being proactive.
This deep dive into Wizard Spider has been, well, a real eye-opener. They're not just hackers. They're like a cybercrime corporation.
They are.
Yeah.
And knowing their methods, how they get in, stay hidden, how they're structured,
Right.
it's all crucial for building a strong defense.
So for you listening, the takeaway is clear. Multi-layered security is a must. Technology is important, but so is training your people, having a response plan, and always being on your toes. Remember everything we talked about: user awareness, MFA, detection tools, network segmentation, backups. It's a constant effort, a continuous process. Now, as we wrap up, what's one thing you think our listeners should really think about going forward?
You know, the Conti leaks showed us something important. We tend to focus on the technical side, but there are humans behind these attacks.
Yeah.
Wizard Spider isn't some faceless entity. It's people with goals, with strategies, who are constantly learning and adapting.
Right.
So defenders need to think the same way. Be strategic, be organized, keep learning, and always be ready to adapt. Cybersecurity is a constant race.
That's a great point. Well, thanks for this insightful discussion. And to our listeners, stay vigilant out there.
Absolutely. Stay safe.